Ready? Yeah. This is an 07K engine from a Volkswagen Jetta. About 4 years ago, Eurowise Performance did an amazing job installing it into this Mark III Golf, before I did an amazing job of exploding it. Oops. Sorry. So we're gonna tear this engine down to the block and piece together clues we discover in the process to try and figure out exactly what went wrong. Well, let's get to work. Oh yeah, dude. My goal in the last video was to convince you that the VW Golf is a legit, slept on, and affordable project car. In this video, my goal is to convince you that the 07K is a legit, slept on, and affordable engine swap. This engine has a ton of potential. It's awesome, and I'm gonna prove it one way or another.
James, you need any help?
No.
Okie dokie. There's no shame in giving up. Just remember that.
There is no giving up, dude. We gotta get this engine out, bro.
Now, I understand the irony of me trying to convince you to do an engine swap using an engine that I exploded, but I don't think it was the engine's fault. See, as we were pulling the engine out, we found a clue leading us to believe that there could have been a serious issue with the blow-off valve on the turbo.
Okay, cut all of that fumbling with it. I figured it out.
Our first clue: a loose boost control valve. The boost control valve is one of the most important components in a turbo system. A turbo, as you probably already know, serves the purpose of cramming more air into the engine to help you make more power. But you gotta be careful, because too much air means too much power, and too much power means blowed up engine. The amount of air going to the engine is controlled by a component called a wastegate. Once you're at an ideal level of boost, the wastegate opens up, which lets out excess pressure and prevents the turbo from cramming too much air into the engine. Now, the wastegate is controlled by a boost control valve via a vacuum line. And if that line isn't airtight, it means it can't form a vacuum, which means it can't control the wastegate. If my engine was taking on too much boost, a whole cascade of things could have happened. We could have seen damage to some of the pistons, possibly the crankshaft, or even the block. So for now, this is just another clue. In order to know what really happened, we need to get this engine out of the car and start taking it apart.
Right. Now this looks like a race car, dude.
It looks like a sports car.
Well, that was easy. That thing came right out. Like I said, I want to convince you guys that this is one of the most underrated engines of all time. One of the reasons for that is this engine's pedigree. I like history and I like stories. And this engine has both. In the 1980s, Audi, a subsidiary of Volkswagen, was dominating Group B rally racing with the introduction of the now legendary Audi Quattro. Previously, Audi had been using old VW four-cylinder engines, but when they needed more displacement and power, instead of designing an all-new engine, they just added a cylinder, creating their legendary 2.1-liter turbocharged inline-5. In a time when larger engines were dominating motorsport, Audi bet on a smaller, lighter power plant paired with their new all-wheel drive system. It paid off. In 1982, Group B regulations were put into effect, essentially the most insane, no regulations era of rally racing ever. That first year, they won the Manufacturers' Championship. They won again in 1984, all with Audi 5-cylinder engines.
If I have some emotion, of course, it's the noise of the Quattro. I mean, nobody can forget the noise. Even today, I think we miss this kind of noise.
Group B cars were so powerful, so light, so fast, and so dangerous that after 5 seasons, the FIA came to their senses and changed the rules. I love these engines and the story behind them. I love that I can put a piece of that history in my car, and I love that when I fire it up, those in the know will recognize that signature 5-cylinder sound. Nothing sounds like a 5-cylinder. But unfortunately, my 5-cylinder sounds a little different right now. And if they're so strong, then why did my 07K completely blow up? Well, we already have 2 clues. That horrible knocking sound and the loose boost controller valve. But that still doesn't give me enough information to piece together what happened.
Chris, have you ever worked on an 07K?
Never.
You worked on a 5-cylinder engine?
Yes.
Really? What?
You know, the General Motors.
GM?
Yeah, they made a 5-cylinder.
What did that come in?
I think the Envoys or like some fucking Trailblazers or SUVs like that.
Really?
Careful. Alternator. Off. Off.
Almost.
Turbo manifold officially off.
This thing's nice.
Yeah, so that's another sign that might be our suspect right there.
That is oil all over the inside of the exhaust manifold, a place that oil does not belong. All of your engine's oil pools down here in the crankcase and gets distributed by the piston rings. Small traces of oil will remain in the combustion chamber, but that all gets burnt up. So if we're seeing oil in the exhaust manifold, that means that excessive amounts of oil were coming up through the crankcase and out through the exhaust ports. So something is seriously wrong with one of the pistons. And that really tracks with what we saw in our last video, because all of that smoke was the result of excessive oil getting burned. But now that we have the engine opened up, we can clearly see that all that oil was coming from one cylinder. This one right here, cylinder number 1. So moving forward, we can focus our diagnosis there.
We're on a trail. Time to dig a little deeper.
This video is brought to you by us and you guys. We turn down a lot of sponsorship opportunities because we can. If we don't rock with a certain company and we don't like what they stand for, then we don't have to be sponsored by them. And you guys can help us stay that way. So please consider supporting Speed in a number of ways. One of those ways is buying our merch. We got hats, we got shirts, we got hoodies. We have this thing called the On Garm program that I'm really excited about. With every video, we release a shirt or other item, and it's only available until the next video comes out. There's one for this video. You'll see it later on in the video. I've seen a couple Speed hats, or I get tagged in a story and someone's wearing a cool hat or has a Speed sticker on their car. That means the absolute world to me, and that has always been the goal, to build a community of people who like cool stuff. Speaking of community, we have a membership program. It's like a Patreon. It's called the Legion of Speed, and I'm really, really excited about it. Already members get access to discounts on everything in the Speed store, special channels on our Discord, a members only podcast. That's an entire podcast that's like an hour long, talking about behind the scenes stuff that's going on at Speed, sneak peeks at upcoming videos, discussions about technology, cars, life. All of this and our store is at speed.co. So go there, check it out. It's scary starting a new thing, and it's even scarier when you ask your friends to join that thing with you and turn down opportunities where they might definitely make a lot more money, but they believe in it and the risk is worth it to them. And that's because of you guys. So I just want to thank you so much. So your support means everything to us. I love you. Thank you. And now, back to the show.
Boost controller officially off. Intake manifold officially off.
She is bold.
There's really not that many parts on this.
Looking at this engine on a table, especially with all the accessories removed, you can really see how incredibly small this thing's footprint is. That's another part of why it's such an ideal swap. You can fit it anywhere, and it's surprisingly light. 200 pounds lighter than an LS, 150 pounds lighter than a JZ, and is just as small and versatile as the K series. Car companies often reuse engines across models to justify development costs. VW used the 07K in Jettas, Rabbits, and Passats, and then they tweaked it for the faster, pricier TTRS. The blocks are relatively similar. Most of the differences lie in the head. TTRS came turbocharged. I had to add my own. A used TTRS engine costs $11,000. Mine was $500.
I love that sound. Dude, this is fun. Fun working on an engine outside of a car. We're standing up so straight. Valve cover officially off.
Thing is so nice. Look how clean it is.
Is there anything that
That stands out or anything? No.
Yeah. Dude, look how cute these little cams are.
F***ing Volkswagen.
You need to order a bit.
Like a special f***ing torque.
I think we're stuck. We need a VW specific Torx bit to get the head off.
Yeah. I probably got a little too happy with it. A little too round now. Hey.
Nice. Dude, you're such a good fabricator and machinist.
So that socket I modified was probably like $400.
Oh, yeah.
So just make sure we all keep tabs.
If you want to take the head off, you do need specialty tools. If you know that you need them, you can order them, and they're not super expensive.
It's not like it's a crazy special bolt. It's just
A little bit.
it's a little more rounded and sharp.
All right,
Moment of truth.
looking at pistons, Zach.
Whoa, this is weird. See how clean that is? Mm-hmm. So usually when you see something like this, it means that made contact with the head. So let me just see here. Sure enough, pow!
Right here.
Yes.
The matching clean metal on the piston and on the head confirms that cylinder number 1 was making contact with the head. Now this can mean one of two things. Either A, something is wrong with the rod bearing that allowed the piston to travel up further than it was supposed to, or B, if we overheated the engine, the head gasket could have actually gotten compressed so much that the position of the head itself changed and made contact with the piston that way. Or C, something is wrong with the wrist pin. Or D, all of the above.
We suspect. Well, we don't have to suspect because that piston's cracked in half. You see that?
Oh, yeah. Damn.
Guess I'll add that to the list too. The piston itself is cracked in half, which technically points to the same things as clue number 5, but it does help us build a better picture of what happened, especially because we realized later that the piston rings are completely intact, which means all the blow-by and all the excess oil was actually coming through the center of the piston, which is something that personally I've never seen.
Hello there.
Dude, that's crazy.
Here, draw a little happy face on it.
I don't feel so good. I'm sorry I let you down, guys. I just couldn't take it anymore.
So now we're going to pull the number 1 piston and the rod out to see what caused it to make contact with the head. Right now it's a chicken or the egg situation. Did it hit the head because it was cracked in half, or did it crack in half because something else was wrong and it hit the head?
Yeah, that's rod bearing material.
Another clue. Rod bearing material. Tastes like a rod bearing.
Finding what is most likely rod bearing material in the oil pan is a huge clue because it's pretty good evidence that the reason piston number 1 made contact with the head had to do with the rod bearing, not the head itself. This is our smoking gun. It means the culprit is not far away.
Okay, so here's another
Clue.
But you see this discoloration? Mm-hmm. That means it got f***ing hot.
Yeah. So these are all gold.
Oh, shit. Look.
And there it is, the final piece of evidence that puts this whole picture together. Most likely, here's what happened. Our boost control line was loose, leading to the turbo sending in too much air. As the engine heated up from the excess boost, the oil film began to break down and the rod bearing eventually failed. With the bearings spun and fused together, the loose slack in the rod caused the piston to smack against the cylinder head until eventually it couldn't take it anymore and it cracked right in half. The oil was able to slip through the crack and into the combustion chamber, causing that smoke that we saw in the last video. And that is how my engine exploded.
Yeah. I think that about sums it up.
The good news is the block, as well as most of the other key components on this engine, are fine, which, if you think about it, is super impressive.
Oh, there we go.
Well, there's your problem.
Yeah. I mean, this is, dude.
That's pretty cool. I mean, if you want to blow an engine, this is how you blow an engine.
We followed the breadcrumbs, we got to the end of the rainbow, and I think we found our problem. Now it's time to put this thing back together with stronger parts and make some serious horsepower.